So today I'm going to be giving you 7 tips on how I do the Wim Hof method, and hopefully they could be useful for you whether you have been doing the Wim Hof method for a while or whether you're just starting out. Before we get into the tips, just a brief overview of what the Wim Hof method is for those who might not know. It's basically cold therapy, breathing exercises and meditation combined, and that's essentially what it is. If you want more information on it, of course there's plenty of videos out there and you can check them out. But yeah, cold therapy, breathing exercises and meditation essentially. And of course I must pay respects to Wim Hof himself, who has achieved so many amazing records and also introduced this to the world more broadly now. Thank you very much, and I definitely suggest checking out Wim Hof if you haven't already. Okay, so let me just go over the reasons why to do it, because if we don't have any reason to do it, then we won't be bothered to follow the rest of the tips. So here are just a few reasons why to do it, and these are literally a few, so they're not all of them. One reason is the Wim Hof method will increase your brown fat. So brown fat has a lot of mitochondria. It's a different kind of form of fat to white fat, and because brown fat has a lot of mitochondria, it's an ATP energy source, so that means you've got a lot more energy. Also, the brown fat will use the white fat for an energy source, which will mean that you'll lose a lot of unuseful forms of fat. You could even lose quite a bit of weight if you've got excess white fat on you. Therefore, this extra energy will increase your recovery rate, which is of course very useful if you exercise quite a lot. And on top of this will increase your mental focus and energy levels, as well as being able to mentally override uncomfortable situations. I think partially because you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, it can help you push through stuff a bit easier. Another thing is it's an acute stressor, not a chronic stressor. Of course we don't want chronic stressors. And acute stressors are good for you. So basically it's a small dose. Imagine vaccine. It's a small dose of something and can actually help you become stronger. On top of this, it reduces inflammation through something like a 300% increase in norepinephrine and a spike in adrenaline. This will in turn reduce the stress hormones, and therefore you'll have less anxiety. All in turn, this will boost your immune system and is also improved to be able to control autoimmune diseases, which for this method, the science behind autoimmune diseases was that you couldn't do anything about it, but that has recently been proven incorrect. So it's very interesting how you have such an increased ability to improve your immune system, which of course in today's circumstances is something everybody would want. Anyway, those are just a few little reasons, but if you want more information, I'll put some links down below of more science-based evidence on why the Wim Hof method is beneficial for everyone, including you. Okay, so without further ado, on to the tips on how I do the Wim Hof method. Tip number 1, breathing exercises. So setting yourself a regular allocation time to do these breathing practices. This could be 5 to 10 minutes long, and of course this is part of the Wim Hof method. However, I feel when people do the Wim Hof method and cold therapy, they just do this and they forget about the breathing aspect of it. It's very important to practice these breathing exercises because it's going to help you prepare to actually do the cold in the first place. So personally, I prefer doing the breathing exercises in the morning. I feel like my brain is less cluttered then, and also it's an easy time for me to fit in that 5 to 10 minutes straight into my day and get me in a nice frame of mind before I begin my day as well. When I'm doing the breathing, I focus on the diaphragm, so breathing nice and deeply in. And also I do something called Ujjayi breathing, which is a yoga kind of form of breathing where you restrict the back of your throat. But if you want more information on how to breathe properly, I'm no expert, so I'm going to put some links below on how to do this, including Wim Hof's own guided tutorial on breathing. But anyway, set yourself a regular, consistent time for you to do these breathing exercises, because consistency is the key for this. Tip number 2, meditation. This is another aspect of the Wim Hof method, but once again I feel like it's neglected. So this can be incorporated straight into when you're doing your breathing exercises. So therefore you got 2 in 1 right there. But with the meditation, it's important that you just let yourself relax and let your mind wander. So one problem that a lot of people seem to face when they're meditating is they kind of start thinking too much, they start trying to meditate, but it's better actually to just let yourself relax, and whatever happens, happens in your mind. You're not trying to get rid of thoughts necessarily, you're just letting those thoughts come and go. So rather than trying to control everything, just let your mind wander when you're meditating. And one thing that can help is almost looking at your thoughts in a third perspective. So rather than being you, but so much as looking and observing your thoughts from a third perspective will mean that you get a bit more of a different perception on what you might be thinking, and this could possibly help you get through some of the stuff you might be going through in your life. But ultimately, it will allow you to be present, and that's the main thing you want to achieve, is presence. Not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, but just being in that current moment. And this is another practice that will really help you prepare for the cold therapy. Once again, I'll put some links down that could help you guide through your meditation as well. Tip number 3 is a pre-workout. So before you do your cold therapy, before you go into the cold shower, go into the cold pond, wherever it is going to be, is to get a workout in just beforehand. This makes it a lot easier because of course you're warmer, and that means if you're warmer beforehand, the cold actually can feel really nice. I remember when I was doing it in summer, it's just actually a really nice thing to do, is get into that cold water. But if you're in winter or if you're in a cold location, then getting warm is quite crucial because you don't want to be going in already cold. So just doing any form of exercise that gets your cardiovascular system and your respiratory system going, gets the blood moving, and it will also help recovery rate after your exercise. So it's a really good thing to do straight after exercise anyways, but I feel like it also prepares you for the cold, especially if it's an extreme cold you're going to go into. And if you want to get super technical with it, doing yoga is quite a good one because of course you're really connecting to your breathing, and therefore you're becoming a lot more present, and then when you get into that cold, you'll be a lot more present and be able to deal with the situation better. However, any exercise beforehand, whether it's 5 minutes long or whether it's a full-out workout, will definitely be useful. Tip number 4 is the shower tactic. So basically, when you go in for your shower, if you struggle or if you're just starting out with cold, it can be quite daunting. So what you want to do is have the shower hot to start off with, and then right at the end of it, after you've cleaned yourself and everything, is turn it down to cold and stay in there for about as long as you really feel comfortable to. So I would recommend probably a minute or 2 minutes. If you can go for any longer, that's obviously great, but this is an easier way of easing yourself into the cold because you're already used to the water, and it'd be kind of less of a shock to your system when you turn it to cold than if you'd just gone straight into the cold. Of course, there's great benefits to going straight into the cold because you're getting that shock. You're also trying to mentally, it's a good way of pushing yourself to go straight into cold. However, if you struggle with this, then this is a great tactic you can use, just turning it to cold right at the end. And I personally, even if I decide to have a hot shower because I don't want to have a cold shower that day, I turn it to cold right at the end because I feel it's useful to me because it gives me that extra bit of energy and alertness if I turn it to cold at the end, and I kind of feel a bit more refreshed personally. Anyway, this is a little tactic you can do, is have it warm to start off with, and then right at the end turn it to cold, and just enjoy what it is and stay present whilst you're there. Tip number 5 is presence. I think this is the most important of them all, and if you can hack this one, then it's going to really help you in the rest of your life anyways. But being present when you're in the water, so when you're in the cold water, it kind of forces you to be present to level, because there's no way you're going to be ignoring how cold it is, and you won't be able to ignore the situation you're being dealt, and that's why it's a good way of practicing presence. But when you try to resist being present and trying to think about how much you want to get out, then of course it's going to be a harder process for yourself. And to make this easier, especially if this is an extreme cold you're getting into, maybe getting into a really cold pond, then I think the best thing to do is just to let go. Accept your cold. Accept the cold, and the quicker you do this, the better, because you won't be resisting no longer, and it will make it less of a painful experience. It's kind of like changing your perception from this being a horrible experience to this being like a therapeutic experience. Sometimes I do this, like just remembering all the benefits to this. And if you need to remind yourself after, you can watch a couple of videos on the benefits. But remembering this is not harming your body, and once again, like I said, just changing your perception from this being horrible to actually a great opportunity to improve your health. So a couple of things I do to stay present is I remain very, very calm. Calm being I'm relaxed, breathing. I focus on my breathing a lot when I'm in the water, and also I like shutting my eyes, or if I don't want to shut my eyes that day, I just observe what's around me. So just looking around and not thinking too much into things, like, look, that's a tree, oh, that's the sky, but just observing, so not thinking too much, just like observing, being present. And if you want to shut your eyes and kind of observe what's there, that's another way that helps me be present. And it's very much correlated to the meditation and the breathing exercises, and that's why it's very important to do those when you're not in the water as well. And a final little tip on being present, which could help, is actually having some music in the background, some nice music you like to listen to, whatever it is, and just having that in the background can really be quite a nice experience, because usually when you're listening to music you're doing something else, you might be working or texting or something like that, but it's nice when you're in the cold and you're being present. Having some music in the background can be quite nice, and it can also help get you to be a bit more present. Tip number 6, warm up. So if you've been in an ice bath, or if you've gone into a pond outside, or lake or whatever, something extremely cold, or maybe if you've been in a long cold shower exposure, after is probably the hardest bit sometimes if you don't warm up. So after you get out of the cold and it's been extreme, you'll get something called aftershock, which is when your blood is, because you're vasoconstricted to keep the warmth in your core area, to protect your core organs as your body does. Afterwards you'll experience a vasodilation, and that means all your capillaries and arteries will open up more, but therefore all that heat is kind of getting shuddered away from your core again, which will make you kind of uncontrollably shiver. I've experienced this, it's not pleasant at all. So to avoid this, warming up is crucial. So there's a number of ways you can warm up. When I go out into the pond, and then I usually have a hot bath prepared straight after. So that means, especially if it's a really cold day, or it's winter, it's crucial to have that hot bath ready for me, because then I can warm up straight after. Because having an aftershock effect isn't really the healthy part of it. You want to warm up. Another thing is, I find if I've had an extreme cold exposure, I don't have a bath, I don't have a sauna, and maybe the shower's not doing it for me, then a post-workout is something I basically have to do. I have to keep moving. So having something prepared in your mind, something like a walk out, or something where you're moving quite fast, maybe just to get your warmth back in your body. And also putting on loads of layers afterwards is actually not suggestible, so If you do that, you're kind of just insulating the cold you've got on your body. So you want to allow warmth, so you need to have warmth around you, and that's why it's kind of important to keep moving afterwards if you're particularly cold. So yeah, that's my tip, warm up afterwards. And my final tip, tip number 7, is just some precautions. So there's a couple of precautions that are necessary, one of which is if you've just started out or you might have some sort of health condition, it just need to be careful. Actually, whoever you are really, just being careful on the first couple of times, having someone around just to check you're right, just check that you don't panic. I think it's quite important to have someone there who cares for you, just to check on you, especially if you're doing something quite extreme. Another one is don't be a hero, don't push yourself too hard. So try to keep track of how long you've been in there, because after a while you go numb and then you start to actually feel warm, and that means that you start to feel like you've been in there for maybe forever kind of thing, but eventually you will get hypothermia. So it's definitely worth just keeping a track of time when you're in there, being sensible on how long you want to be in there. So personally, when I go in the pond at the moment, which is actually just 3 Celsius, so it's pretty cold at the moment, I stay in there for 5 minutes, but I also have a hot bath ready for me, and I'm all ready to warm up afterwards. And that's after 4+ years of experience in the Wim Hof method. And another one is a good sign to show that you've been in maybe too long, or maybe it's inappropriate for you to be in for any longer, is when you start to shiver. So you don't want to be there shivering away and staying there. Shivering is a sure sign that you need to get out. Don't stay in if you're shivering. Also, if you're ill, you've already got an illness, and you're feeling unwell anyway, it's not suggested to do cold therapy. Your immune system's already compromised, and you're adding another stressor to it. So avoid it when you're ill, but it's also a great way of stopping you from getting ill. But yeah, do it when you're not ill. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope this was informative and useful, and I hope this has kind of encouraged you to maybe give it a go if you don't already do it. Otherwise, hope you have a good day, and I'll see you next time for another video.